Yeah, man. DJ Foxy, Bill, Gio Vitocola, Chris Ferrari, DJ Chris Sharp on the mix, featuring Chia Mix. Yeah, shake it. It's a movie mix. This song's dedicated to all the pretty ladies in the house.
your body, shake your body, hop. Baila, señorita. Baila, so señor. Take it not a chance. You can clap your hands, shake your body, shake your body. Baila, 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 baila. Dancing, 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 dance. Everybody hot, you got another shot. Now you can dance until you get tired.
Voice of South Pacific broadcast from Seattle, Washington at Manamo'i Center. Today is April 2nd. That's the second day of the 4th month of the year. We're so blessed, still be able to talk live and well. Welcome everyone. And before we continue on, we would like to ask Pastor Aseli to lead us with a word of prayer. And again, my name is Sylvia Aho, and here's my co-host, Leitu Huakau. And thank you, Pastor Aseli. We'll ask you to lead us with a word of prayer, and then we'll continue on.
Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning. Just want to thank you, and we want to welcome you into this get together, Father. We invite you to come and lead us, and just help us, Lord, as we facilitate each other and inform each other what we need to know. We pray for your guidance and your blessings, O God, upon us and upon the Voice of the Pacific, and also, Lord, to all of us, and Sylvia and the team for making this happen and bring it, Lord, into enlightenment to our community. We give you praise, we give you glory. Come lead and as we see. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Aseli. Pastor Aseli is from the Pulavinaka land, from the islands of Fiji, all the way in the South Seas, neighborhood of Tonga. And welcome, Jody Olson, and also Kate Cole. Thank you for the great opportunity to have this program. And I know our topic today is talking about like the cervical cancer. And the cervical cancer, will say something in our Tongan language. Ko e uhingaya ki he taunga whanau. Hange ko ki nau tolu ko ia o uesia I he taunga whanau o mao ki nau tohe cancer. So this is a great topic that we could talk about, also to help our people abroad in the community. Before we continue on, I would like to welcome each and everyone. If you could just, again, my name is Sylvia Aho.
Latu Huakau, co-host.
And Lupe Talamoni, could you just say hello?
Good morning and thank you for the invitation. This is Lupe from Samoa represent.
Okay, and also I saw Naomi Havea, she's on. And I think that we'd like to take this opportunity to continue on. I will ask the first question. Pastor Aseli, can you go ahead and lead us with the first question of the day?
I'll start with the first question, and thank you for the opportunity to come and join you guys. I think the question is just first question is, what is the cervical cancer and how common is it?
First of all, thank you for having me. Can everybody hear me okay? I want to
Yes.
make sure, because I'm not hearing you all that great. So I want to make sure you hear me.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Is the volume okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, great. Okay, well, as I said, my name is Jody Olson, and I have been with was with King County for over 20 years and recently retired about 10 months ago from the breast, cervical, and colon health program. So I have worked with those three cancers for many years. And I'm glad to be talking about cervical cancer today. And the cervix is part of the female anatomy, and it's actually part of the reproductive system. It is the cervix is in the lower part of the uterus that separates the lower uterus and the vagina. It's very important during childbirth. The cervix dilates so the baby can move out of the uterus into the vagina and then out of the body. So again, it's a very important part of the female anatomy and the reproductive system. And unfortunately, cancer cells can start in the cervix. And fortunately for cervical cancer, it's very slow growing. So with reliable tools, it actually can be diagnosed at a very early stage. However, before the pap test, which is the most common screening tool, it was one of the most deadly cancers for women up till about the 1950s, 1960s. Globally, it still is one of the leading causes of death for women. It's the fourth leading cause of death for women globally, and part of the reason for that is access to screening, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. In terms of statistics, the American Cancer Society, which is kind of our gold standard in terms of when we're looking at data, they indicate that about 14,000 new cases of cervical cancer will be diagnosed in the United States this year in 2024. And approximately 4,300 women will die of cervical cancer. And in my opinion, that's too many. Precancers in the cervix are diagnosed most often and much more often than invasive cervical cancer. Unlike other cancers, usually the number one reason or risk factor for cancer is age. That's not the case with cervical cancer. Most cervical cancer is diagnosed between 33 and 44, with the average age being 50. Many older women don't realize that they are at risk for developing cancer, cervical cancer, and more than 20% of cervical cancers are found in women over 65. However, these cancers rarely occur in women over 65 if they've been going for regular routine screenings. So that's, I think, the answer to that first question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue on to the next question, and I'll ask Lupe Talamoni.
Thank you, Ms. Sylvia, Ms. Johnson. So, can people be tested or screened for cervical cancer? And who should be screened and how often?
Yes. And that's, again, I think my most important message is yes, people should definitely be screened for cervical cancer. The first test that was used for cervical cancer was developed by a Greek physician. His name was George Papanikolaou, and he used this pap test as a research method for understanding the menstrual cycle. And it turned out that he recognized that it had potential for finding cervical cancer early. And he presented his findings to a group of physicians way back in 1923, a long time ago. And most doctors were very skeptical at first. So it wasn't until the American Cancer Society promoted this test during the early 1960s that the test became widely used. So now it's really the test that most women will get. And since that time, cervical cancer incidence and mortality rates in the United States has decreased by almost 70%. And pap test can detect pre and invasive cancer. So it's a very good and accurate test. In developing countries, screening for cervical cancer is not common. And that's usually because people live in remote areas where medical care is limited. So getting back to when screening should happen. Screening typically starts at around age 21, and usually the intervals for pap tests are every 3 years if nothing is found on the test. The screening guidelines have changed over the years. So in 2022, the update screening was defined as screening for women aged 21 to 29 every 3 years with a pap test alone. And then for women aged 30 to 65 is screening every 5 years. And so they use kind of a co-test. They do both a pap test and an HPV test. So it's called co-testing. Typically, women over 65, if they've been screened on a regular basis, no longer need screening as long as the pap tests have been fine.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, it's of each and every one of us, you know, that I hear the participants today representing an islands, you know, like Samoa, Fiji, Tonga, Marshallese, you know, and so forth. And that's very important, you know, that you can also spread the message to your community in your native language. Okay, and the next one I would like to ask Lydia. Lydia, she's also like working with the broadcast back home. Lydia?
Thank you, Ma'am Sylvia. Before I ask my questions, Ma'am Charleston, let me refer back to the figure that you mentioned earlier, 14,000 new cases, 2024.
Sorry. Say the question again.
Did you say 14,000 new cases in 2024?
Close to 14,000 new cases, yes, and that's across the United States.
And 43,000 have died or will die?
They predict 4,300 will die. So 4,300.
So my question is, what actually causes cervical cancer?
Yes. HPV is a sexually transmitted disease, and that is the number one reason that cervical cancer occurs. So HPV is a virus. It causes things like genital warts, for example, and they've found through many years of testing the HPV vaccine that is one of the number one ways to actually prevent cervical cancer from happening. So the HPV virus is by and large the reason for most of cervical cancer. It's a common infection that passes through with sexual contact. And when exposed to HPV, the immune system typically prevents the virus from doing any harm. But in a small percentage of people, however, the virus does survive for years. And this contributes to the process that causes much of the cervical cancer to become cancer cells and then develop into more invasive cancer.
I just want to jump in
Another-
really quick, Jody, because I think this is one of the most interesting parts, and it's something I didn't know when I was first learning about cervical cancer. Usually when I think about cancer, I think about, gosh, it's something, you get as you get older, or you get because you're smoking or exposed to bad chemicals. But it sounds like
Right.
cervical cancer is like a really unique case where most cases are caused just by this virus that is a sexually transmitted infection.
Yes, and it is, and like I mentioned earlier, age is not necessarily the risk factor because it happens in younger women, and the virus is, like I said, by and large, the reason for this cancer. And there's not other risk factors, like sometimes there's other lifestyle risk factors like smoking. Smoking is actually a risk factor for cervical cancer too, it's the number one risk factor for many cancers. So if you know people that are smoking, encourage them to get help to quit smoking, because that is still very much tied to cervical cancer. So smoking is also a risk factor. And in some cases, HIV can also increase incidence, which again is tied to the immune system. So really, the virus is the number one reason. And it's also, I will talk about some ways to prevent cervical cancer, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But those are the most common reasons for cervical cancer.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Did you get all your questions answered, Lydia?
How
We have
can it
another
be
round to come up.
prevented? How can it be prevented, ma'am?
Sorry?
How can it be prevented? Sorry, can you hear me, ma'am?
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about HPV. I want to also just go back to smoking. And I really stress that smoking contributes to not only this cancer, but for all cancer. So Kate and other public health folks can give you resources for what the county is doing in terms of tobacco cessation. But that is definitely a resource that people should take advantage of. Also, men should wear condoms during sex. That's another way to prevent this cancer, because again, it's caused by a virus. And then the most effective thing is to make sure that your children get the HPV vaccine. The vaccine was developed and studied in the early 2000s. It was widely available after about 2006. The vaccination is highly effective, 96 to 100% effective, and it should be given right around the same time that the usual vaccines are given to 9 to 12-year-olds. So it's just another vaccine that kids 9 to 12 receive. And it's available for both females and males. When my daughter was 10, I brought her in and we started at that time it was 3 vaccines. I think now it's recommended for girls 2 vaccines. At that time, my son, who's older, did not have access to the vaccine because he was a boy and the vaccine was first developed for girls. But by the time he was 16, the vaccine was now available for boys. So he was able to do a catch-up protocol with the physician and had 3 vaccines between the time he was 16 to 17. So both my kids are fully vaccinated. And any kids who didn't receive the vaccine, there is availability to get the vaccine for kids or for youth 13, and then for adults up to age 26. They don't really recommend it for people over 26 because it's really important to get the vaccine before you're sexually active. So that's why they really recommend 9 to 12 years old is the perfect age to start the vaccines. And again, they're available for both men and women. The vaccine is covered under the Washington vaccine program for children and youth under the age of 18. I believe, and this is not my expertise, but I believe insurance does cover it for that 19 to 26-year-olds, but I know it's not an inexpensive vaccine once you get older. So you'd have to check with your insurance to find out if that's available. But again, it's highly effective, and it's important to know that no vaccine provides complete protection. Just like with any vaccine we get, we still might see some incidents of whatever we're trying to prevent. So I highly recommend that people still continue to have routine health care, including that PAP test or HPV test, whatever the case might be, to make sure that no cervical cancer can grow and cause more of that invasive kinds of cancer.
Thank you, ma'am. Just one more additional question. In Fiji, 6 to 8 years ago, they started to implement the HPV vaccine starting from the junior school level 8 for all girls. Just my last questions. The stages of cancer in Fiji, from what I know, people went through stage 1, stage 2 is treatable, but come to 3, 50, and stage 4 is there's nothing that can be done about it. What about here in the States?
Well, I wouldn't say nothing can be done about it. It just becomes more complicated when you get into that higher stage level. And I have personal experience. I was diagnosed with cancer about 2.5 years ago. I have stage 4, and I have stage 4 ovarian cancer, and I will live with that for the rest of my life. And we live in a community. We live in the Seattle area, and the King County area is full of wonderful treatment facilities. We have the Fred Hutch, which is world renowned in terms of their research. So I wouldn't say when you get to stage 4 cancer that there's nothing you can do about it. It gets more complicated, certainly, and usually the treatment is much more invasive. Usually, and I'm going to get into treatment in a little bit, but I wouldn't give up hope if you're diagnosed at a later stage. If someone that you know is diagnosed at a later stage.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And right now we're about like 10:22. We got two more to ask question.
Okay.
Ratu Wakau, you can go ahead.
Where can people get the HPV vaccine? Can you still get it if you're an adult?
Where can you get it as an adult?
Yes, or where can you still get it if you're an adult? We know that our children can get the vaccine while attending school, but for us adults, some of us here in the community probably have no idea where and how we can get it. Can we ask
Right.
our own doctors, or, so I'm asking.
First of all, I just want to reiterate that it's really for the catch-up vaccines for adults are really up to the age of 26. I don't know how many providers would provide it over the age of 26. That would be an individual question you'd have to ask a provider. But any clinic, any community center, any free clinic should have access to the HPV vaccine. They may have to order it if they don't routinely see pediatric patients. They might need to make sure they have it in stock, but it's widely available, and it is should be something your insurance for under 26 should cover,
Thank you.
and Medicaid should cover it as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then I have another question, but I see somebody was texting, Dino. I think you maybe already talked about it, Dino. The question Dino is asking, Dino, how to prevent cervical cancer, and I know you already maybe shared, some information, but if you could just like maybe repeat it one more time. Preventing, the cervical
In terms
cancer.
of prevention?
Yes, prevention.
Prevention. Well, as I said, don't smoke. Quit smoking if you can. And then it's a sexually transmitted disease. So making sure that you if, for example, using condoms can help prevent it. Having one partner is certainly an important an important part of reducing cervical cancer incidence and really reducing the chance of the HPV vaccine. So those are and then of course, if you're immune compromised, getting regular screenings in addition to the general public. I think the idea of having a provider and working with a trusted healthcare system that you individually feel really good about going to, so that you can have that routine screening, whether it's every 3 years or every 5 years, is really important. Cervical cancer is relatively slow growing, so that's why having regular screenings is so important, because you want to catch it at the earliest stage before it gets to that stage 1 or 2, where it gets a little more complicated in terms of treating cancer. So quit smoking, know your sexual partners, getting regular screening, and then for younger people, getting that HPV vaccine. Those are the basic ways to eliminate or decrease your chance of getting cervical cancer.
Thank you. Right now we are approaching, like about 10:30, 30. At this time, it's 10:26, and we'll just take like 20 seconds, to get a little break here with a melodious sounds of music from the islands.
Yeah. Para los hermanos.
Thank you, and welcome back to our Voice of South Pacific broadcast about the cervical cancer. Latu, I know this is also like a great information, especially for the women. What is something that you think that is very important when we get Jody, the specialist, on this field?
I
We
think
need to know about.
I'd like to thank you, Jody Olson, for, I know you retired 10 months ago, and to give up your time to share with us your wisdom and your knowledge of such a topic that is so important for our community at large. And when women like myself hear of the word cancer, automatically, if you're not educated to know more about cancer and the causes, we have automatically think of people and loved ones around my own community who have died because of cancer. However, in our program today, you have explained explicitly about ways of, or introduced cervical cancer, which is a topic that I know in my community, we often think at times that there is no cure. But to hear right from the word start that if we start at a young age, like for myself, educate my young daughters and those around me in my community, like Fijian, Samoan, all communities, the awareness. I think it's so important that you have touched upon the awareness and the figure of over thousands, 14,000 will be affected by cervic cancer. However, over 4,000 will still lose their life if they are not aware. And I want to thank you for the program today. Like one of our panel guests who said, had no idea that this was, affected at a young age. And to be, and to share this with us, I want to thank you because we can save life. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much, Latu.
I think, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoy being here and I'm happy to do these kinds of events, because I think, as you said, it's really important that our younger community know about this, and also for the older women to know in this particular cancer that there is a lot of help out there. And cancer, I think we talk way more about cancer than we did 30, 40 years ago. And it was, for many people, a death sentence. And they felt like if they heard cancer, there was nothing that they could do about it. But that has really changed. I think one other thing that I wanted to mention is that, and I've mentioned it a little bit earlier, is finding a good provider, finding a good clinic that you can trust and you feel like you're heard. Because when I was diagnosed with cancer, I know the medical system really well and I knew who to call, but my cancer was delayed in getting diagnosed. And I think I waited 6 months before the diagnosis, and I knew something was wrong early on. And even with that, it took a long time before I had a final diagnosis. So I really encourage women to talk to each other, find out where they go and see, a physician or a nurse practitioner. A nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, a physician, an MD, they can all do the PAP test. So it doesn't have to be a physician that does the PAP test. Any three of those kinds of healthcare providers can provide that test. And screening is down, unfortunately, right? Especially given that we went through 3 or 4 years of dealing with, 3 years of dealing with COVID. We really saw a reduction in the number of screenings that people are receiving. I think, especially during the height of COVID, people didn't go to the doctor because they were advised not to, because they wanted to make sure that they were keeping clinics open for emergencies and for people dealing with COVID. So we need to get people back to screening. About 23% of people are due for screening. And that number, I think, has even increased. That was a 2019 statistic, that 23% of all women were under-screened. And I think that statistic is actually lower in the last couple years. So screening, again, is really important. And and there's not many symptoms around cervical cancer. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. The symptoms that do show up are usually when the cancer has gotten to a later stage. So that's why, again, early screening is really important.
Thank you again for this great information, and that is very, very helpful, We're so glad, to get this great information, to help us all. Lupe Talamoni, Talofa, from the islands of Samoa.
Hi, Sylvia. Ms. Johnson, I just wanted to say thank you. This is really important for us because, the cervical cancer is one of you caught into the base that I was trying to ask you about the symptoms. And because of a lot of women, our islander women, don't do screening until it's reminded of. And I really appreciate you for that. But what treatment is it available for cervical cancer for women or for everyone?
The treatment? What is the treatment? Usually it's a combination of things. When it's early stage, it's usually it can be chemo or radiation at early stage, or it could be a combination, or it could be one of those. It depends on the stage. Sometimes surgery is needed, and in many cases, if a woman is past childbirthing years, they will do a hysterectomy because it will basically prevent any of those kinds of female cancers like fallopian tube cancer, ovarian, cervical, and
You're
uterine
getting
cancer.
a lot
So
of
in some
feedback
cases,
from your microphone. Would you mind trying to adjust it just a little bit? Try talking now.
is that better?
Well, no, we're still getting some feedback. We can hear you. It's just a little fuzzy.
Okay, I'm gonna take the mic. Is that better? I'm gonna take the. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's just fuzzy.
Okay, can you hear me better now? No. Better. Okay. Anyway, so in terms of later stage cancer, it's usually a combination of all three of those: surgery, and sometimes they do chemo first and then the surgery to try to reduce the tumor first, and then they do surgery, and then sometimes radiation. So there are many, and there's a lot of chemotherapy drugs. I think there is more than I know about, and the ones that were, I think, used years ago had terrible side effects like nausea and losing weight, that kind of thing. That has really been managed much better in the last number of years. Doctors know how to treat those side effects to chemo. So again, it's I think people get terrified when they think, oh my gosh, I have to go have these horrible drugs put into my system. They don't want to do harm to you any more than the cancer already has. So they've got a lot of really good management tools to help with the side effects that some of the treatments cause. In terms of alternatives, I don't know of any alternative approaches. I used acupuncture during my treatment to help with some of the side effects, and there might be similar kinds of acupuncture that can be used during other cancer treatments. In fact, I know that acupuncture is used kind of universally to help with some of the side effects. But specific to cervical cancer, in terms of prevention, I don't know of any other alternative therapies. But massage and anything that makes you feel good during the treatment, stress management is really important. And you want to make sure that you are with people that make you feel good. And whether that's talking to a counselor or just talking to your friends and family and surrounding yourself with the people that lift you up, I think is really important during any kind of health situation that you're dealing with. And but again, I really want to emphasize that people can prevent cervical cancer by having that regular visit to a provider and asking questions. And if you're not getting the answers to your questions, find a different provider. You don't have to stick with that provider, and go to somebody else. And that is your right with your insurance, with Medicaid. You can change providers, and I know it's not easy these days because we are at a provider shortage. I realize that, but so when it's your health, you really need to make sure that you feel like your questions are answered.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Naomi.
The question was, I see a question about screening spaced out, and the reason that it's the U.S. Preventative Task Force that decides how often screening should happen. And I know that's partly, I think, cost related, but they also don't want to, cervical cancer, breast cancer screening, colon cancer screening are invasive, and women, those are body parts that are private. And sometimes the cervical screening can be a little invasive. It's a cold, well, they try to heat them up, but it's a cold metal apparatus that goes in a very private part of our bodies. And what they've done with what they've found in research is that every 3 years, as long as the pap is fine and there's nothing that they see that's wrong, is a good alternative to doing it every year. Now, if they found that you had some dysplasia, meaning maybe some precancer cells, they'd want to take care of that right away and have some type of treatment. But then they'd probably do yearly pap tests until they feel comfortable that everything is back to normal. So for some people, they will have yearly pap tests or HPV tests. But for the regular or for the general population who where the tests have been negative or fine, then every 3 years, or that co-testing with the HPV test and this pap test every 5 years. So that's why the intervals. But again, for anybody who's having any problems, they would do tests more often.
Ma'am, another question, sorry. In the States, we have a Fijian community. What if people wanting to have screen, but they don't have insurance?
Great question. So, and that's why I'm kind of here, is that the CDC, Center for Disease Control, years ago in 1990, worked with Congress to pass a program that is available in every state, and some Native tribes also run the program, and it's available to women who are either underinsured or uninsured and meet the age qualifications. In the case of the program that's in King County, that's women 21 to 65. They can take advantage of the breast, cervical, and colon health program. The program, and they have to be under 250% of the federal poverty level, and they can't qualify for Medicaid. So if they don't qualify for Medicaid and you make less than 250% of the federal poverty level and you meet those age qualifications, you might benefit from this program. And they provide the pap test, the HPV tests. They provide mammograms when you become when your it's age appropriate. So usually women over 40 is when you start the mammograms, and a woman's health exam, and that's available to women on a yearly basis. You have to reapply every year, and the Community Health Access Program that's run through King County can provide support in helping to find out if you're eligible for that program. And if somebody wants to write this number down, that's 1-800-756 I might have to have some help with this. What's the number, Kate? Do you know? And the number I have has 5 digits at the end, and I don't think that's correct. So it's 1-800-756-5437. Is that right, Kate?
I'm looking it up now, Jody, and I'll put it into the chat as soon as I have it for folks.
Okay, great. So that's the number to call to see if you qualify. The other great thing about our Community Health Access Program, we call it CHAP, is that they are the lead navigator for the county, so they can help people with all kinds of insurance issues. So if you don't have insurance and you'd like to buy a qualified health plan or get onto Medicaid, they are the number to call in King County. They're great, and they have lots of resources. They have there are multiple languages available if English is not your first language. And they have other resources available to folks in the community as well. So they're a good number to have. share that with your friends and colleagues, because they are a great resource and they are our referral line for the breast, cervical, and colon health program. So the program used to have a colon screening for both men and women, and unfortunately the funding went away for that, but we still have it in our name because we really believe those 3 cancers have great screening tools. And I'm going to be coming back in late May to talk about breast cancer screening. But colon cancer should start at age, depending on your family history, between 40 and 50. For breast cancer, it's usually women or females at birth starting at 40.
Well, thank you for all that questioning, and the answers was given by Jody was also beneficial to us all. While you were answering some of these great questions, there was phone calls that came through. So we're trying to get back to them, and they're on the phone right now. So you'll hear a question from one of our listeners right now, Jody. Thank you. Okay, and would like to, whoever's on the phone, please come on. Oh, is that the one? Oh, yeah. Please come on through. Jody will answer your question right now. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. You guys hear me?
Yes, she can.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
My question is on cervical cancer. How long can I have if I have a cervical cancer without knowing it? How long?
I didn't talk about the side or the symptoms of cervical cancer, and so I will mention that some of the symptoms are abdominal pain, but that can be a lot of different things. So that's not, shouldn't be the only one that you consider, but also pain after intercourse, bloody discharge between periods or after menopause. So if you just display bloody discharge after menopause, go see your provider. And but as I said earlier, these, by the time those symptoms show up, it's probably the cancer is usually farther along than we would like. So again, I mentioned that this cancer is slow growing. And that's why going on an annual basis to your provider is so important. Did I answer your question?
Okay, Lini Puloka was the person that called in. Did that answer your question, Lini?
Oh, yes. Now, thank you so much.
Thank you. So that was one of our listeners who called in.
I have another one.
Yes.
My question is, if now I'm going on 55 and I'm still having my monthly period.
Menstruation.
So does it connect with cervical cancer or?
Normal. Did you get it, Jody?
Still having your period at 55?
Yes, she still has her period.
That would not necessarily
I know while
be
you reach
connected.
50, it has to be,
If you're still having regular monthly periods, do you go to your provider on a regular basis? I mean, the short answer is no. That
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
She does go to her doctor.
Okay. And I think when you get, menopause can happen anywhere between the ages of, early 40s to late 50s. Sometimes this is very uncommon, but even into the early people can still have their monthly periods. If you're concerned, there is a test they can do to kind of look at what, how close you might be to menopause in terms of your hormone, how, dealing with your hormones and whether your hormones are still producing a certain level of estrogen, and they can pretty much determine where you're at. But periods alone are not an indicator of cervical cancer. It's usually when you don't have your period or you're seeing bleeding between periods that you should be more alert about that and talk to a provider about that.
Thank you. So Lini, you're on a good, healthy pace because you're seeing your doctor in the meantime. And please keep that up. And if you're unsure, like Jody has just explained, then you can always ask for further testing through your provider. Thank you.
Sorry, but I'll just kind of hop in and just ask a little quick question.
Thank you. I know I'm on the menopause period now.
Oh, okay. There you go. So there you go, Lini. You are heading.
Lydia, it's nothing.
You're one of the lucky ones. You 65.
Yeah, Jody, it's just a curiosity. What is an average age, for women, to, discontinue, with the menstruation period?
Age for what? I'm sorry.
What's the age level to stop, their menstruation?
Oh, period.
Period.
I think around 55, actually. 53 to 55 is usually the average age
So
that,
she's okay.
that menstruation will stop. Or you start seeing changes in your regular cycle.
Yeah, that's great.
Ma'am,
I
just
heard my sound is not, that you're having trouble hearing me, or is it difficult to hear me?
we're getting your message. We're getting all your messages, ma'am. Just a question. How about fibroid? Is it connected to cervical cancer?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, okay.
No, it is not. It can be for other cancers like endometrial cancer. But again, having a good provider is really important so that you can ask those questions about fibroids. I give presentations to medical students, and there's another woman that shares her experience with around her ovarian cancer, and she had fibroids. They thought that was the problem for all, her issues, that, some of the symptoms that she had. And in that case, it had no connection to ovarian cancer. They removed the fibroids, and she still had ovarian cancer, but it had no connection. So fibroids are painful, and they need to be watched on a regular basis, but there is not necessarily a connection between that and any of the cancers. But it's important to be seen on a regular basis regarding the fibroids, because they are painful and they can get troublesome as you get older.
I have a quick question. Say I discovered or the doctor told me I have cervical cancer. So what are some of the treatment or the steps? Does it take a year? As we know, other cancer, it can be, very deadly. But as we know, there is cure for this cancer. What are the steps for if I was getting help to be cured?
Well, finding a good oncologist is the first step. And so working with your provider to get a referral to, let's say, wherever there's cancer, there's a number of cancer centers in Seattle, for example, and in King County. So getting a referral to one that you feel comfortable going to. And then usually that oncologist will come up with a plan based on your stage. And as I said before, you may just have radiation, you may just have chemo, but most likely you will have some type of surgery. But it doesn't mean you're going to have a hysterectomy. It just might mean that they go in and make sure that it hasn't spread, and may do some kind of exploratory kinds of thing. In my case, and again, it's not cervical cancer, it was ovarian cancer. They diagnosed me on a Thursday, and I had my first treatment a week later. So it happens pretty quickly because they want to get you into treatment as soon as possible so that you have a better chance of a good recovery.
Great.
Hi, Denny.
Thank
So
you.
I think the message is don't delay. You know, the minute you have some kind of concern or diagnosis, make sure that you follow through with your appointments. And I think, again, that's where fear and trust
Hold on, Lenny.
need to be considered, because people are fearful, and they also may have situations from previous situations that they had with previous encounters with the medical profession that they might not trust. And so finding an advocate that can work with you is also really important. I know you have a robust community health worker network in King County. So working with an advocate, if you're afraid that you might not ask the right questions, bringing a friend to those medical appointments or a family member is also really important, so that you can keep that process moving along as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Thank you, Jody. We have another question coming through on our phone line. So we'll just, it's Leni again, so we'll let her ask you her question. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lenny. Hello? Lenny? Una, is he on the line?
Yeah.
Lenny, can you hear us? Right
Yes.
now? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Judy. I have a question. I was wondering if there is, do you hear me?
Yes, she can.
Yes, I hear you guys. You hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Does a man give to the woman their cervical cancer?
I think her question is something that you already covered before, like the sexual giving, or, because it's a virus that you can get, and that's what she's asking, and if you could answer her again, how the process, if that is possible.
Yeah, it's unlike a lot of other cancers, this one is caused by a virus, and there are a number of HPV strains that cause a very large percentage of the cervical cancers. And that's why that HPV vaccine is really important, because it attacks those viruses and prevents it from turning into cervical cancer. Again, smoking can increase the risk of cervical cancer, and having multiple partners, sexual partners, can increase, because you don't know if somebody else has HPV. The other really interesting thing, when they started studying the HPV virus, they also found that it was common in other cancers like throat and tonsil cancer. And I had a neighbor who is my age who developed tonsil cancer when she was like 50 years old. And she was not a smoker, and it's usually not a very common disease in women. It's more common in men. And usually most people that have tonsil cancer or throat cancer are because they smoked. In this case, the doctors realized that she had HPV. So that also can cause, this virus can also cause other cancers.
Thank you, Jody.
I think I got it all. We got everything. Kate, it's about 11:01 right now. Are we going overtime or we have to stop in American time?
Jody told me that she can stay on longer. I do have to get off. So if there are more questions, you're welcome to stick with Jody and ask more. I would recommend, Jody, you're still having so many sound issues. Sylvia, if you have more questions, I might recommend we take a musical break so that Jody can disconnect and reconnect and see if that solves some of the audio issues.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate, for this great opportunity to share with Voice of South Pacific. And we do look forward, to continue on because you can see how our community, inherits those relevant information that is very helpful for all of them. Even with our community leaders that are here, they go to spread it out to their community, especially with the cervical, cancer that is very affected, like majority of the Pacific Islanders women, and it's just nice. It's better prevention is better than cure. Get
Yeah,
those
thank you so
information.
much for hosting.
So we look
this,
forward,
Sylvia,
to continue working
everyone who
with
called
you.
in with great questions. I really appreciate people being so open with their questions because I know it can be a kind of personal thing to talk about.
Yeah,
Yes.
very true.
Thank you again. And Jody, I'm sorry that we are going to take you all the way to the South Seas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now we'll take a little pause and then we'll play another little melodious song from the South Seas Islands. Thank you so much, Jody, for having patience, like with our coconut time. Yeah. Eventually, you can take a trip all the way to the South Seas and visit the paradise, the other side of heaven. Yeah, we have another person here, Sina Packer. She's the one that navigator, and also leader of our senior Tongan community. And I know that a majority of them are women. I'll give this opportunity for you, Sina. Sina, go ahead.
Thank you, Tima, for giving me the opportunity, and my apology for being late. Again, I'm under Fatima's title, Coconut Time,
but I have a quick question in regards to the Pacific Island. The majority of us, number one medical issue is diabetic. Number one, and then cancer, followed by now is cervical cancer. How worried are we as the Pacific Islanders about these kind of diseases that are attacking our people?
Jody, are you having audio issues still? Were you able to hear that question?
I didn't hear the last part of it. I heard, she said I'm worried about something and
Okay, okay, let me
didn't hear that
repeat my question. I'll repeat my question. As a Pacific Islanders, for women, because we are we are volunteering for senior citizens, and majority of our 90% are women. And some of the medical issues that we deal with is diabetic and cancer. Now, cervical cancer is coming up as one of the numbers that increase in our tribe, our ethnic people. So how worried are we? Are we worried about now food, sexual activities? I know it's kind of not a good question, but I'd rather bring it out so you can share with us how to prevent those from happening.
Well, I think as I mentioned to you at very early, you weren't here in the very early part of this, is that with the testing, with cervical cancer testing, meaning a Pap test and an HPV test, and going to a provider on a regular basis, and with making sure you don't smoke and all those things that we mentioned in terms of what can prevent cervical cancer, the rates are really not that high. And so I don't want people leaving here today thinking, oh, this is really something that I have to be concerned about. If you have a regular provider and you're doing all the screenings, you really shouldn't have to be concerned, because a negative test means that you probably are just fine. And I really want to stress that, and really stress that this is a fairly, in terms of cancer, it's one of the least prevalent cancers, because we have the Pap test and we have these tools that providers can use to keep people healthy. So it's not breast cancer is the number one cancer for, lung cancer and breast cancer are the 1 and 2 cancers for women that most women are concerned about. Cervical cancer, fortunately, is lower on the list, but I don't want to see 4,000 people die in the United States each year. And I certainly don't want to see even one person die. So that's why I really am stressing and saying over and over again how important it is to have regular Pap tests and regular HPV tests, especially if you're in between the ages of 21 and 65.
Thank you. I think test is very important as a reminder in order for us to avoid having that long-term illnesses, including the cervical cancer, is to go see the doctor, get your a regular vaccine or Pap test.
And one other thing that I just wanted to mention is that when you fill out a survey, oftentimes it's for Pacific Islanders, they lump your identification with Asian women. And so it's usually API if you're filling out a survey. And it's a little misleading, because Asian women, other than Vietnamese women, have a much lower rate of cervical cancer. Pacific Islanders don't necessarily have a higher rate, but we're seeing less Pacific Islanders seeking regular health care. And that's why I think this message is so important, is that the rates probably would be the same. But we're finding that because of whatever trust, whatever the case, that Pacific Islanders don't seek regular health care.
Totally agree.
Okay, glad that she answered your question, Sina. Eh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Arceli. He has to leave, for another appointment. Thank you for joining us and also leading us with a word of prayer. And I also have Naomi. Naomi, what's your question? Naomi, I don't see you. Okay, we can go ahead and ask Lupe or Lydia, one of you, whoever have any more questions. This is the time, that we inherit great information. And remember, don't forget to share it with your community abroad in your native language.
And I'm just so thankful that this is brought up, because here in the state, we Fijians, so to speak, we are so concerned more about our time at work, and we never thought about our health, that it's very important we take time off
Very
and
true.
find a health care facility where we can go and have ourselves checked on either cervical cancer, breast cancer, or anything. This is really very important, that I am going to share it amongst all the Fijians that I'm going to meet or talk to. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to go
Been a pleasure.
over what you just mentioned. A lot of us, we work in like healthcare as well, and we get to take our client to get tested, and sometimes we get carried away with our work that we fail to take care of ourselves first. That's number one I've noticed very highly. I've also seen in the last month alone, I'm talking what's happening here in Seattle alone. Women who have been diagnosed with cancer. And I know of a young lady just on Sunday who is now waiting to take her time. There is no other cure. And she's a very young lady. And that's why we can no longer assume that it's going to go away. This problem of not taking care of ourselves first, we need to. And like myself, I have a big family, and I need to sometimes stop myself being a workaholic and say, I got to take care of me in order to see our grandchildren graduate and spend time with them when we retire. So I'm so thankful that King County Public Health, give us this opportunity to be able to come here on the air or even through live stream to stress the importance of health and women and empowering us women, because I realize that we as mothers are the one who are in charge of the way our family eats, and our family are trained whether they get to see the doctor annually and not even our husband and spouses. Sometimes they keep saying they're healthy until they're in emergency for a heart attack. But I thank you, Jody, and others.
Well, again, it's been a pleasure, and it's an important message that I think we all need to share. And you're absolutely right. Women, especially women who are really involved in helping other people, don't always help themselves first. And we tend to say, oh, I'll take care of myself later. And it's a really important message that you just shared.
Very true.
Very true. And I'm one of the vulnerable clients on that one. Yeah, my family, everybody that knows me in my family said, you go take care of everyone else, and we don't know when are you going to sleep or rest. And then, and sometimes I just got burned out, By the way, I have another person here that asking question. Go ahead. Lini?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was late coming in, but I'm wondering what's the most risk for cervical cancer?
Oh,
It's the most what?
what is the most risk?
Risk. Okay. The biggest risk is getting that virus, that HPV virus. That's the biggest risk for cervical cancer. And as I mentioned earlier on, usually the biggest risk for cancer for women is age. And that is not the case with cervical cancer. Most cervical cancers are found between the ages of 33 to 44 with an average age of 50. So the HPV virus can be transmitted through sexual contact. So knowing your partners, if men can wear a condom, that prevents some of this virus from spreading. But for younger people, getting that vaccine is super important. The HPV vaccine is readily available. Children, well, the ideal age is 9 to 12, but really youth under 18 can get that vaccine, and they're available at clinics. Those teen health clinics. You have teen health clinics at both middle schools and at high schools around King County. They should have that vaccine available for their students, and pediatricians. Pediatricians all over King County want to get the rate of HPV vaccine up high. And we were really doing well until COVID. And then the emphasis really on vaccines was all around COVID, and some of the other childhood vaccines have really taken a hit in terms of making sure that rate stays above 90%.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jody. And anybody else that have any question? We're rounding up to the conclusion of our conversation about this great topic. And Jody, before we end it, is there anything else that you think that is very important, to keep us informed about this topic here, about your research study and your knowledge about the cervical cancer? What is something that you think that is like a very priority, to prioritize, for us to be aware of having this?
Well, I think in the case of really any cancer, but I'll talk about cervical cancer, is that it's really an individual health situation, and you can't necessarily compare your stories with somebody else. So especially the really terrible stories where people hear that they die from cancer. And people die from cancer every day, and we know that. But there's also a lot of really hopeful stories that we need to spread. But my biggest message is that every individual has their own unique journey around this cancer. And I think discussing your situation with a provider early on is really important. In the case of cervical cancer, that starts at age 21. Young women should be getting regular screenings early. Family history really doesn't play a role in this cancer, but for other cancers, it certainly does. So if you have a parent or a sibling that has cancer, that may play a role in other cancers like breast and colon, and some of the other female cancers. Your personal risk factors, if you're a smoker, I highly recommend for all cancers that you find a way to quit smoking, and just making sure that you communicate your concerns on a regular basis. And that a lot of people think they are a pest when they're doing that, but they're not. And this is why we have providers, and providers are there to help you. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're not getting what you feel that you should from a provider, then you need to change your provider. and that's fine. And
Oh, I see.
not everybody is going to always see eye to eye on an approach, and you need to feel comfortable with your body and making sure that people are really there for you to provide personalized quality healthcare.
Thank you so much, Jody. I will say something in our native language, then we'll pass it around, to say something like in Samoa and Fiji, and then we'll round up to close. Ange koe ngai whaina hina koe une hanga tuku mai, o ko whie ma o koe nea o pe ha taha ange koe tamai whiwhine, o ta ua fulma taha, pe o whie ma o lewa ke te alo sivi, he? Whie ma o lewa ke te alo sivi, he ku lava pe ke kamata pe me he ta ua taha hono ma o kita. Pe o te kovi ange o ka pau o ku ke toi iwi tapaka, he? Aia koe ngai me aia o toton koe ke whae ehi me ai. Pe o whema o pe whakiki ke sivi koe ngā koe kawai pēni, koe ngā kawai sia ho sino, ange koe ngai mea koe COVID me mea koe ia. O lava i peke nei wese pe mo taunga whanau. Te aha ki tāna ka lea tu, pe os koe then we'll pass on to Lupe and also Lydia.
Aia koe whakamanatu mai ka tau tolo e kau tahi whanau. Whie mao pe ia o ku iai e huhu o ku pe koe immunization, pe koe whanki shot records e tau whanau whangamokopuna. O ku oange ia ka kinau tolo pa o ku huhu aia koe HBD. He? Aia koe HBD, hange koe lawe koe ia Jody, ulahe ngahi taimia o kai ke hoko koe COVID, hange ku tau tuku noa i lewa whanki huhu koe mahu inga koe ni. Aia koe uhinga ia e lawa mau he tau whanau o ka pau he kai ke huhu nau tolu. Ka koe huhia koe ni o kai ke lawa ia mau he ka kailalahi, tu kehe pe ka pau o ku te kau pau pe ke te whakai ehi, hange koe ngahi whaunga na e swamatala he tau poro kalama. Mahalo.
Thank you, Latu. Now we'll pass on the ball to Lupe. Say something in Samoa.
Thank you again, Ms. Jordan. I really appreciate it. Whaftai lava mo lava noa. Whamalo si atu le tangata anu o Samoa. Ea o ngā fo ele latu so inga i mwhaiva ai o tato fo mai siri po o fo mai wa tau whiwhiria. A walta mwhainga fo i o soifua maloloina mai puipuinga lo soifua maloloina. Ai whamanuia le atua ia o tō mo tō sosonuanga. Ma la o tō fo i whafonga. Yeah, lo fa le atua puipui. Okay, Miss Sylvia. Thank you so much. A blessing for us. And I also translated everything that we say in Samoan. Thank you, Ms. Jolson, again.
Thank you, Whawhetai lava. Malolo pe. Okay,
Bye.
Pula, Lydia.
Thank you, Ma'am Sylvia. Nimbule bina kana nondo ni warno ting main na buno libungo Amerika. Vital na tagtingon na itutu kumembelatan na Kenisa, kato ni ngone sena Kenisa hintu buni ngone. Lebo na ngona sanda toka ngai na buno ravaka, tangule da bentalin di kebio kenda na marama, lebo na kai bo di kenda bo ambimbe na matingona Kensa. Taura na nomo day off. O di kenda kinangona buno ramo na len di kebi kina. Paleta sona ngona ni sati ko weekend tar kena pakatakil kila enda sianga tu nikla. Kau ti kenda yani dali pakatikebi. Telak-lak ko na sati ko weekend tar sona kena man-mano. Yung kay sianga ye ndo makamenta bukila ko ti nga takawita ka ti ko na nonda bulan. Donga ng bula maroya. Ngona ni day off sa ngandor ko no mon wali kina balakin ti kebi tarang membelata na Kensa ni kato ni ngone babang ti kebi kina. Ti ko na no wingso sa sianga sa sangalak na kina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Vinaka Vakaleru. Okay, Sina, I'm gonna give you like one last thing, like if you have anything to share, because I know you work very close with the Tongan senior every week.
Oia malo mai whainga maari e koe wahewahe tupe mahino na mau me au I he polakalama koe ni ka koe wahewahe tupe ke tau tolu ke o te tau iri fia. O te tau iri fia ke lea ka weha me au hoka ko tau sino tau te fito ke te. Ki mea sisi me alahi ko koe pete ke whaka mo ui ho sino. Aki haolea, mo sea, mo alu ke te tā o huhu. Koe pe panki mea koe hia pe koe pe share aki my access o kawe pe no se ako aki pa lolo ai pe tau no fe maman ko ni o kalahiat katik motor. Malo.
Malo Sina.
Oh, thank you so much, Sina. Well, Sina's mom is upcoming 84th birthday this week.
84?
Yes.
Wow.
So her mother will be celebrating, the 84th birthday.
Wow.
That's a blessing.
Looking good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Jody. I think it's about like almost 11:30. It's 11:26 right now in American time. Thank you so much. We do greatly
Pleasure.
appreciate it.
Yes. Have
all
a good
this
rest of
great
the day.
information.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jody Olsen. And now in the month of May, we'll have the topic for the month of May next month will be breast cancer. That's also another big affected, like in our community, especially
Okay.
with the Pacific Islanders also.
Look forward to that.
Yeah, breast cancer. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone
Bye-bye.
for joining with the Voice of South Pacific broadcast from the Manamo'i Center, spreading the word to help the community, lift up everybody, live a better life. Healthy is the number one priority. If you're not healthy, then you don't really feel good. What's the use of living in this life? Again, thank you, Jody.
Bye-bye.
Ofatu, malo.
Thank you. Thank you, Una.
Ta ima tau ki fo hiva una. Me yelo na uvea.
Hala tulu.
Good luck to all our sports.
Yes. Also, your nephew is in Tonga
Yeah.
playing sports.
Shout out to all the teams in Tonga.
Yes.
Sione Palu, of course, Sylvia Aho's son, won a silver medal yesterday for running the 1500. And we are all shocked. We didn't know he's out there participating.
He went and put his own.
Yeah. And best wishes to all our participants in the Kingdom of Tonga. All
Yes.
right.
Yeah, sports field of Tonga right now.
Yeah.
And yesterday. That's a big thing, for the upcoming generation of the islands of
Yeah.
Tonga.
Sponsorship by Australia
Yes.
and the women health as well.
Yes, they were asking us, to do some sponsorship, and I forgot all about it.
Oh,
But
next
yes, we
time.
do fully support.
Next
From
time.
Voice of South Pacific. Makes a difference, in our Pacific Islanders community.
Tune
Thank
in
you,
next
everyone.
time.
Tune in next time on Thursday. We also have another program, with Dr. Pakieri, but the health,
Wonderful. We
Yeah.
love that program too.
And yes, and we're gonna be here too.
Yes.
And this is my co-host, Latu Akau. And also our best rated tech,
Yes, the one and only.
Una Hefa,
Give us a song, Una. Finish the day.
DJ live stream. Awa. Whoa. He dance guy. Our ancestors back in those days, were all just using it one language from one island, and we can all speak the same dialect, eh?
I know.
Because it's just like the new words, it's just like mato for us, eh? Koto. So, but I noticed that newest language is so very close to Futuna and Ubea, eh? And then Samoa, See, Samoa Fafetai, and then we say Fakafetai, eh?
The word malays are very common.
Yes.
Months and also the word malo.
epic tsunami that was happening in Turkey. Flood disaster relief for Lake Note, and one of the navigator at the Pikawa Pacific Islanders Community Association of Washington, and that's their house right there that was affected.
Oh, nice.
It was
Oh,
just a
sad.
flood. And so with all the items that are needed, if you wanted to donate, you can donate like rice, flour,
March 15.
toiletness, soap, batteries, flashlight, and personal hygiene products. So it's all of these, ended on April 29. Or monetary donations are also accepted. Yes, we will also try to look into that so we can be able to help out,
Yeah, I can get a lot of batteries.
Yes.
Someone who has a lot.
Thank you so much.